This program was made possible by a grant from the Kirkpatrick Foundation.
I had to figure out a way to steer it and to stop it. You know, and to make it go. These little actuators, that was the one that turns it. Went and got quarter scale airplane parts, basically. There's a little RC plane servo right there. I guess it would normally run the gas on an airplane, I don't know. Just found the right parts to where the remote control would run them. Man, I live for creativity.
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 Creativity is about solutions.
It's about answers.
It's about answers.
It's about answers.
Creativity is about action.
It's about action.
Creativity is about
Creativity
action.
is about action.
Taking it from here to here.
To hear.
To hear.
To hear.
To hear. To hear. To hear.
To hear.
Creativity is everywhere.
Creativity is a state of mind.
Creativity is a state of mind.
It's about looking at our world and seeing how we can make a difference.
Can make a difference. In our families.
In our families.
In our families.
In our community.
In our place of business.
In our place of business.
In our state.
Creativity is about you.
You.
About you.
You.
Young.
Young and old.
Young and old.
Creativity changes lives.
It changes us.
It changes us. It changes us.
It changes you.
Changes you.
It changes you.
Oklahoma is the state of creativity.
We didn't know. I mean, it just hit like that. I mean,
I remember it to this day.
It's like your worst nightmare when you're told your son has a brain tumor, and it's like you wake up the next day, and you're like, oh, it's a nightmare. You wake up, and no, it wasn't.
A motorcycle?
They couldn't decide if it was a primitive tumor or a glioma. My best guess was it was a very primitive tumor, and it was high-grade aggressive.
We'd get no news, it's this. Then we'd go in, we'd get it removed for a surgery. Well, it grew back. Well, we're doing radiation. Well, it didn't work. So it was a lot of heartache, a lot of disappointment.
One of the disappointing things for us was that we were at a point in the radiation before the second tumor came back where they wanted us to do whole brain radiation, and so you have to treat the whole neurological system. And at that time, he just turned 3, and you know, the controversy was, do you radiate a child under the age of 3 or 4, because it's a growing, developing brain. And we went ahead and did it. It hurt so bad. I mean, we both looked at each other and we was like, we're darned if we do, we're darned if we don't. They told us all the things that could happen. He could have learning disabilities, he could have stunted growth, and gazillion things that no parent wants to hear. And we said, you know what? We have to do this because this is what we're told we have to do. And we just need to get to that in the future. We can face that when we get there. Whatever disability he's gonna have in the future, we've just gotta get him there. September, he had a surgery for removal of a tumor, and then he went through 6 weeks of radiation. We had the MRI on December 28th of 04. We had to find out that something else growing there again. On January 11th of 05, he had another removal of the tumor. And then went through some traditional chemo. Then it was on into January. It was on Valentine's Day. We had another MRI, and they said, well, it hasn't grown, but it hasn't gotten better. It was almost, 2 weeks after he'd been in chemo. We went ahead and did the Gamma knife. From there, everything just started getting better, after we started getting around his second, third round of high-dose chemo, and he was really sick. But our MRIs were clear. There was no tumor, and I really didn't feel like we were in the clear until he was 3 years out. And from his last chemo, that was when we seen the first signs of his radiation necrosis. Brian was with him, and his right arm went limp. He couldn't use it, it was just like completely limp. The chemo was an added effect to the radiation. They're like magnets. They work together to get rid of the cells, the bad tumor cells. And on top of that, it got viable tissue. It was a nightmare. He lost all function. He lost function of his legs, his arms. He couldn't stand up to go to the bathroom. He couldn't get out of bed. He couldn't hold his head up. And I remember Halloween pulling him in a wagon, and he couldn't even sit up in the wagon.
I still look back on it thinking, why did we do that? Why did we do all that radiation?
Yeah, we question ourselves every day.
And it's hard not to, but...
Why do we do that darn radiation?
Yeah, because that's our problem now.
He has radiation necrosis of the motor cortex. That's your part of your brain that controls your muscles.
We've hurt our kid for doing that. At the time, we're getting this, it's protocol. This is what we need to do. This is how we treat these tumors. But, looking back, it didn't help us at all. It just hurt us. That's the sad thing about it. What'd he do?
Kyle has lost, a big majority of his ability to just control his body. He had to have a significant amount of radiation, and it basically caused some of the good part of the brain around where the tumor was to die. It took away a lot of his motor function and his ability to do what he wants on his own.
He is pretty much dependent on us to do everything for him. I mean, we feed him, we bathe him.
When you're with Kyle, and if he's, say, watching TV, you can't really do nothing. I mean, because if you go outside, he needs something, he can't hear you.
He has an itch on his head or his nose or his face.
Or just anything. So you it's 24/7. You're there. One of us has got to be there.
Yeah.
But he's a typical kid. Just depending on parents.
Yeah, pretty much depending on us.
Daddy.
You're real good at it. The creative, it's a daily thing. Always thinking, what can we buy or what can we use that's gonna help him be creative. He has become a little independent on some things that we've modified in the home. He has his Wii game, and we use the hand braces to actually mount the Wii brace on. We'll Velcro it on, and he'll use it like that. Got it?
I got it.
Let me see. You're at the right level.
What? I'm fixing. Wund. Bada, 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 bada.
Got him? It's actually good therapy for him. He's moves his arm quite a bit. He's got a lot of range of motion in his upper arm now that he didn't have before. Just using that and doing it, he'll play for hours. Just constantly modifying things. You have to be creative with different things in the home. We're just learning this. He's in first grade.
And I'm even thinking, as a child, when you counted, you could use your fingers. Well, he can't even use his fingers.
Talk, tick, tock, Nate, wake up.
So you got to think, how am I going to teach this math to count things. And you know, as a child, I remember I could, you know, there's 4 and there's 3, you know. So I'm doing this too, you know, count this one, okay, count these numbers. So he's, yeah, you've got to just be creative in that. And then there's the fine line of juggling one child that's a dependent one where the other one's not. So,
you know, his sister, she sees us constantly doing things for him. And where's time for me? Kind of how she's screaming out. We have to almost designate time to go do things with her, or designate that parent time. Just, I'm gonna go read Lauren a book, or I'm gonna go spend 15 minutes with her to play, undistracted. You gotta be creative. Break it up.
Anytime you have a student that has physical limitations, you know, what we want to do is help them in the educational setting to be as independent and successful as they can be, and supply them with the adaptive equipment that will help them be successful. With Kyle, it took quite a while for us to figure out what was going to work for him, because we went through several trials of different types of joystick devices and different locations where he could be able to reach them on his own, and you know, we were not successful.
How's that? Good?
His setup is not common. It's the first for me. I mean, I've never had a child drive a chair with a single switch with a screen display. And I've been doing this for 28 years, so it's exciting for me, though, to, you know where we're at with what's available. And it's an ongoing process.
Okay, find your switch. Do you see it?
I mean, we problem solve on a weekly basis with Kyle to make sure that when things aren't going right, that we sit down and figure out how to make them better.
Can you see your arrow?
You know, this chair can even allow him to have environmental control, where we could set it up in the future that he could turn the television on, turn the radio on, turn the lights off and on. Anything with a switch in a home environment, he could control it through this chair. Creativity to me is just trying to stay on top of what's available as he grows and as his needs change, and as technology changes, that we make sure that we're right on top of it and we're keeping the best things possible in his environment so that he can be successful.
You're working hard. What's under there, Kyle?
what is that?
Look at Nanny.
You know, ever since he was little, you know, when Kyle was diagnosed with a brain tumor, one of Brian's outlets was to go ride dirt bikes. He just got a dirt bike, and that was kind of an outlet.
And it was a release. It's a lot tougher than you think. Didn't realize that. It beat me up a few times. I got bucked off a few times. But yeah, it's really enjoyable to go out and ride and just concentrate on what you're doing and leave all the other worries behind for that moment. You know, you're in your own element. If you're not thinking about what you're doing, you're going to run into a tree or whatever. So you're kind of going to leave problems behind for an hour, you know, so to speak.
Kyle, ever since then, has wanted to ride dirt bikes.
You know how to ride it?
Hang on.
And, you know, when he went through this radiation necrosis thing in the beginning, I mean, you know, he would always ask, when can I get a dirt bike? And we'd always tell him, when you're 7. And when you get on your feet, or whatever it was, what we could tell him at the time to kind of pacify him, but not take his hopes down or bring his hopes down. You're never going to be able to ride a dirt bike. And a neighbor guy down the street that works at a Yamaha shop, they all kind of came together and said, you know, we know a person that can do this.
My name is Tony Baustert, and I am the owner of T-Fab Custom Metal Fabrication. We do custom metal fabrication on motorcycles, cars. We do a little bit of airplane parts, just whatever I can drag in the door. I had some friends that I ride dirt bikes and stuff with that had talked to me about it, you know, said, hey, you know, will you talk to these people? And I was like, yeah, I don't know if I can help him, but I'll talk to him. And whenever Sandy first came over and brought him, and I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna do whatever I can figure out here. We'll get him going. So it's a little Honda 50cc dirt bike. We built pretty much a standard, what they use as a training wheel on them now. They mount them in the center of the bike instead of in the back, makes them way more stable. We made this one a little wider than normal, a little bit bigger wheels. You know, I kind of built the seat and the bars and stuff first, just trying to get it where it would work for him to be on it. Steering it was a problem. I mean, the original idea was just to try to get him a seat, basically, that he could stay in, that would hold him in. And really, Sandy and Brian was hoping that he could run the gas, but after the first couple of times, it just kind of draws up. Just, you know, that's just the nature of whatever has happened to him, where, you know, his scar tissue or whatever it is that's messing up all of his motor skills. You know, it's just the way it makes him react. That was when we were just like, okay, we gotta make this thing where you guys can operate it. It'll be okay. And I think when I first mentioned the remote control stuff, Sandy and Brian were maybe a little bit hesitant of it, and even maybe I was a little hesitant of it, but I was like, there's gotta be a way to do this. There's, you know, they do stunt movies where they drive cars with nobody in them all the time, so surely we can make a mini bike go around the backyard by itself.
So he went ahead and proceeded with it, and he said, I don't need him to donate we'll buy it. So I'll gather some of my family and friends and we'll buy this remote for it. Which, unbeknownst to us, we didn't know he was doing that. We didn't know he was doing it. We thought everything was donated.
I had to figure out a way to steer it and to stop it, you know, and to make it go. So we put I went and got quarter scale airplane parts, basically. We used a quarter scale servo that would, I guess it would normally run the gas on an airplane, I don't know. We hooked those up to make them push and pull for the steering and push and pull for the brake, and then just found the right parts to where the remote control would run them. And like I said, it was several phone calls and a whole lot of wasted wire and frustration, but I got it finally. It was not that complicated, and it was complicated. But, you know, I'm sure somebody who does robotics or works at NASA would go, I could do that at lunch, you know. But it was fun. It was a fun project. It was different than what, you know, I normally do.
He delivered it on Christmas Eve of this last year. It was a beautiful day. We have pictures of Kyle and him smiling. He had the biggest smile. He had one front tooth missing, and it was just the best. There are memories these are the memories we're getting to make. That we always wondered, are we gonna get to make these memories? It's gonna be different than other memories than we expected years ago, but we're blessed to go ahead and have this. And here he is riding a dirt bike.
And then the first time he rode it, I think we wore the battery smooth out on the remote. He was like, I am not getting out of this thing. And that's usually every time he gets in it, you know, he just wants to go and go, and then his folks will say, okay, this is the last time, and then they'll make a lap, and then he'll take his helmet off, and he'll go, Mom, I need to go one more lap with my helmet off so I can cool down. Wow, now you're cool.
I'm ready.
You ready? You know, and so it's one more lap, and then it's, hey, I need one more lap with my helmet on, and it's a vicious circle. It took a little bit of time, but you know, it wasn't bad. It was fun. It was a fun project to just try to figure out. I like the challenge of you know, having to figure something out. That's kind of why I do what I do. Hopefully we'll get another year or so out of this bike, and then we'll make him another one, get him a bigger one going. His mom was upset. Oh, I don't want to have to build another bike for him. I said, oh, it's fine. I said, I'll build him bikes till he's gray-headed if he wants to ride them. That's no problem. It's awesome. man, I live for creativity. I will sit around and, you know, most of the people whose bikes I work on, it takes me way too long to build them, but the longer it sits there, the more ideals I get, and when I do finally cut into it, it's going to be awesome. You know, I love creativity and people that do it. That was a good project. That's better than building one of these, really. You know. I'll just tell Kyle to keep riding. Keep the shiny side up.
We just put him on there and strap him in and he's ready to go. And he don't want to get off. So, and like she said, he's smiling from ear to ear. I think it's a sense of freedom for him, you know, to get out and do that. So yeah, he really enjoys it. He's going to do what he wants to do. Yeah. He's strong-willed, and he'll do what he's going to do. Just support him, and he will be independent. So I just hope the best. You know, that's all I can do. And take one day at a time. Be thankful for what we got. Put your trust in the Lord, and it'll all work out.
And you know, never give up is his motto. I mean, he's had that since he was diagnosed, you know. He says, we kicked that brain tumor's butt. It's kind of amazing that he's been through so much and that he just says, let's keep going. I want him to be an independent. I want him to be as independent as possible. He will be independent with many adaptations and many creative ways to adapt his environment to make him more independent.
I think that being creative, you said, I think that's kind of going to be our next hurdle. You know, we've gone through cancer, we've gone through this radiation necrosis. I think that's going to be our next thing we have to conquer. And it's a daily thing.
Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation, which I'll probably call OMRF, is an independent research institute. We've always had a practical element to us of trying to understand how disease begins, what makes it worse, how we could intervene to make it better, tests that would help us diagnose it earlier and when it's more treatable. And what we know is that brain tumors, like other tumors, can only grow to a certain size without creating a new source of nutrition. They have to have blood vessels that come to them. It's called angiogenesis, creation of new blood vessels to nourish the tumor. That was the idea that Dr. Floyd and Dr. Towner originally had, maybe to attack that.
So we have devised techniques to assess the level or degree of angiogenesis associated with tumors. But we use magnetic resonance techniques to be able to evaluate the tumors and to see how effective the compounds that we're studying are in eradicating the tumors. Dr. Floyd actually worked on nitrone compounds and the parent compound. He found in the early 90s that this particular compound had an anti-cancer effect.
The compounds that we work on that are really central to this therapeutic approach are called nitrones. We found that these compounds protected the brain. Stress would normally have caused the tumor cells to die, but it was being blocked by chemicals that were coming in and being formed in a natural process. And when we shut that down by the nitrones, the cells were allowed to die, and they died. In other words, here these cancer cells were showing dramatic effect. They were dying.
We found that this particular compound was actually able to eradicate tumors in every single rat that had tumors. And now we're in a position where we're considering commercializing this particular compound and taking it into human clinical trials. One of the other promising aspects of this drug is that we have done most of our studies on oral administration of this particular drug. In the ideal situation, if we could administer it without surgery, radiation, and or chemotherapy, and diminish or eradicate tumors, that would be the ideal situation.
The project in brain tumors is really a great example of what I think the Creativity Project is about.
Creativity often involves individuals that think outside the box and put a lot of different concepts together. It's an evolutionary process. It involves your own thought processes as far as how you can link different concepts together and then come up with an idea that is totally different, that hasn't been thought of before.
Creativity.
Creativity. Oklahoma is the state of creativity.
Creativity.
This program was made possible by a grant from the Kirkpatrick Foundation.
For a copy of this program, please call 800-879-6382 or send a check or money order for $22.95 to the OETA Foundation, Post Office Box 14190, Oklahoma City 73113.